Autobots. Are you just doing my voice? No. It's Autobots. 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 I am not doing your voice. I am not doing your voice. Autobots. Autobots, we have to catch the Joker. Autobots, we have to find Megatron. You may have a point. But Prime! Okay, people, welcome back to another Fwoosh review. Today we're going to take a look at the ThreeZero Transformers MDLX Optimus Prime. And before we even get started, special thanks to ThreeZero for sending this out so I could take a look at it because, man, this MDLX line, oh, I'm liking it more and more. At least what I've seen so far. I've only laid hands upon Bumblebee. But ooh, there's a lot going on here. Basically, the line is a mix of G1 design work put through the ThreeZero filter. ThreeZero is known for the sculpt work and the paint details and the articulation, and there's a grittiness to it. Just take those designs, update them, just bring them into the modern age. Looking at the package, kind of busy, kind of dark. What's going on here? The figure is wrapped in plastic. It's mummified for protection. The window's just there to tell you, hey, the figure is in the package, but check out this artwork down at the bottom. Is that artwork or is that a picture of the figure? It's hard to tell. Even on the back, I'm pretty sure this is the toy itself, but oh. Warning, choking hazard, small parts. May cause harm if swallowed by children. Would probably tear up an adult too, so don't do it. On the other side, bigger logo, bigger Autobot symbol, Optimus Prime hidden back there. On the top, more the same, just different order. On bottom, have ThreeZero, have the UPC, have some tread plate for that metal look. Can you see that? Look at that. There we go. Anyway, let's get this open, see what's going on here. Nothing going on inside the package. From the front, you just see, oh, well, there's Optimus Prime. The hands are hidden. The weapons are hidden out back. Out back. Instruction manual showing you all the extra pieces. That's not the cleanest way I've ever seen to put a matrix in the chest. I have seen this with other ThreeZero Optimus Primes, where you have to lift the shoulder cover before you lift the arm. Bend the elbow, watch out for crashing. Waist armor movement, hip movement, leg movement, foot movement. This is all pretty much, be a little careful, okay? We know it's an action figure, but don't get crazy. And then again, they have to double warn you. Don't put it in your mouth. Well, that's not too bad. It's just a outer cover. It's beautiful. Review over. Go home. Just look at this bad boy. It has all the iconic beats. It has the forehead grill, the side horns, smokestacks. Ooh. Big rig chest. It works so well for musculature, you know? You have the abs, you have the pecs, you have the lights up here on top that everybody has. There's the yellow crotch covers, the triangle turn signals on the forearms, the shin vents, adding some extra detail and, well, I guess a different color to the sea of blue on the lower legs. The gas tanks on the sides are a bit smaller. I don't know if this is a modern thing or they just threw those on there, but I do like how it looks like it's bolted on. No wheels, though, and that's one of the first things that jumped out at me. It does make for a much cleaner leg, but I miss the tires. On the back of the shoulders, there's those same vents to match the design work of the shins. Some very nice back of the forearm details too. I don't know what they are, what they're supposed to be. They were like, hey, can we slip some more design work in here just to make it a bit more fancy? Back with the spine coming up and silver working out to not so silver. It makes for an interesting visual because that's what makes it ThreeZero. Yes, all those G1 elements are here, but there's also so much piled on top of it. But not too much. Well, it may be too much for some people. Some people just want that clean aesthetic, and I can't blame them. That's one of my favorites too. But to have it updated, it's just a neat look. Like there's robot innards. It just gives it a more robot feel. It's not as much as the Bay movies, you gotta admit. Even inside the shoulder, where they could have just left it plain because it's covered most of the time, they put sculpted detail around that ball joint. And then for the paints, everything's clean, except where it's not supposed to be. You can see that silver dry brush on the edges, just to give it a rough, worn look. It's very subtle. Right here on the corner, the paint's just rubbed away a little bit. Optimus Prime has seen some battle. They could have went all out, which would make for a nice variant, some kind of battle damage or something, but it's just edges. Here and there. But for the separation of colors, I think a lot of that is due to a lot of it being separate pieces put together. Like down here on the legs, well, you can't do it until you bend it. We'll get into articulation in a minute, but this is a separate flap. And on top of that, it's a different silver. It's a darker color right here that they've painted. It looks beautiful. On the blues, it's very apparent. It has kind of a panel line look to it. They've filled in the sculpted detail work with a black wash, and that just helps the detail stand out, but they've also silvered the edges. Optimus Prime walking around, there's gonna be more wear and tear to the end of his toes than, say, up here. So there's some thought put behind it. And now that I've noticed the wash on the blues, I realize there's also a wash on the red. Again, to help bring out that detail and gives it kind of a, with all of this realism sculpted in, it makes it feel animated slightly. Harder to tell on the silver parts. I think there may be a wash there, but it's not as heavy as the other parts. Couple things jumping out at me, design and engineering wise. The silhouette, very Optimus Prime. I mean, there's no denying it. Even in shadow, you'd be able to tell that's Optimus Prime. I do have to point out that the horns are, well, I think they're separate pieces on the side of the head. They're not even. You can see this one's pointing forward slightly more than this one. But that's one of those things you'll never see on a galloping horse or at normal distance on a shelf. The other thing are these. They're supposed to be the top of the foot, or at least that's how I picture them, but they're completely separate pieces that just kind of float above the actual foot. They're on a stick that's almost like a dumbbell that you can rotate and, well, not so much side to side, not so much up and down. They're meant to cover, but they seem really far away from where my mental image is. But it also allows for foot movement, toe movement, here, get some tilt. They stay out of the way. It's not a huge deal. I mean, again, you get some distance away from it, they look integrated in with the rest of the leg. And it does add some Mega Man chunkiness down there. The shoulder piece itself is a cover. It gets up out of the way of the hinge there, and you can bring the arm up. The problem is, once you get to this position, if you just push down, things get strange. Until you realize what's going on, you think, wait, what the hell? Why is this hanging low and I can't get this to flip up again? And I can see this joint right there, and it's ugly. Ratchet, I'm in need of repairs. The easiest way is to shift back up and hold this while rotating the arm back down. See how that cutout falls right into place on top of that joint? You're back to just flipping this down and it's covered back up. Something else that is a bit jarring until you get used to it, this elbow cover piece. Whenever you go to bend the double elbow, the upper joint is the first to go. And in that position, this is still tight. Once you kick that lower part of the double joint, this becomes loose. I don't get why that needed to be there. Is that supposed to be, well, simulates the elbow itself, maybe? Because if this looked like that constantly, sticking down, that's not a huge deal. And really, gravity pulls it down, so it's not like it's hiding anything. And if you just bring the arm down, it stays floppy until you straighten out that bottom joint, and then it locks into position. It's just an oddball thing. For some beautiful engineering, there's this cover right here. The top joint goes to here. The bottom comes all the way up, well, most of the way, and you think, well, why did they make this spring-loaded? If you don't bend the top and only bend the bottom, the leg goes into that, and it almost seems like a deeper bend. Then at the foot, besides this floating piece, you have this flap and this flap and this flap, which is great for getting out of the way. And you can see the inner workings of the foot. There's a big old long dumbbell joint right there, plus more sculpted detail that is hidden most of the time. But the foot is still encased in the leg because of points coming down here, 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 and here. So you can't really get further out than that. With the flap down, it does, and then to the inside. Back, yeah, it's nice that that gets out of the way. In fact, don't get me wrong, it's nice that it gets out of the way all the way around, but you're going to do most of your articulating inside of that. Same goes for around the waist. At this point, we're pretty used to flaps or skirting pieces that you can rotate up and out of the way. This is actually, well, this is ball jointed to here for the butt flap, and then that's ball jointed out there for the hip flap. I think my favorite ThreeZero thing is the spine. Whenever you go to crunch, you just see more Optimus Prime. There's not a big open gap there. On the bigger ones, there's usually more segment pieces, but this is a smaller figure. Still though, look at that, just getting into articulation. Okay, there is a ball joint at the top of the neck. There's a ball joint at the bottom too. And that's where you're going to get most of your movement. Looking up, looking down. So much tilt. Side to side. Shoulder articulation, kind of hard to see. There's a ball joint at the torso, and then that goes to a ball joint at the shoulder assembly. That allows for rotation all the way around. And some nice shift up, shift down, forward, and shift back. The cover piece is pegged so it hinges up, and then there's a hinge in the arm on the outside of that shoulder piece that allows for this. We went over it a minute ago. There's a trick to this. You have to come there and then there. Swivel at the bicep. Double elbow, top hinge goes here. Second hinge goes here. Ball joint at the wrist coming out to a ball joint in the hand. Up and down, side to side, rotation. Mid-torso, I have no idea what's going on in there, but you can crunch this far, and there's actually some tilt to it. Then there's a ball joint at the waist that gets you slightly more tilt, and then that rotates. Again, the skirting pieces, up and out, and get out of the way, and rotates. Hell, you can pull them off if you want. At the hips, there's a ball joint going into the body, and then a ball joint coming out to the hip assembly. Some drop down to it. Well, quite a bit of drop down. That allows for this, and holy shit, look at that. That's better than most Spider-Mans. Swivel at the thigh. Double knee, top joint comes to there, bottom joint comes to there. And again, you can get a little deeper by leaving that there and coming to this. Flap, flap, flap. Dumbbell joint at the foot goes back, forward. If you shift back, there you go. Great tilt for all that junk hanging down around it. And I mean junk in a loving way. And then a toe joint that goes up to there. For transformation, this thing doesn't transform, you silly Billy. It's okay. It doesn't have to transform. For accessories, Optimus Prime comes with several sets of hands. There's 2 fists, there's 2 grips, 2 triggers, 2 double finger pointing hands, 2 double finger grip hands. I hate to admit it, but it took me far too long to figure out what these are for. And then 2 super exaggerated splayed out hands. The hands are super tight. Well, the fists are on it in the package, so those pop off pretty easy. But all the rest, I had to heat up to get them on there. But once I did that, it seemed to loosen them. I don't know what happened. I haven't had to heat them up since then. And you know what trigger finger hands mean? A lot more detail than we've seen in the past, but still that iconic look. This thing is big. I hate to say it, almost too big. You can't double bend the elbow to get them into that gun up in the air pose. And on top of that, he doesn't come with a weapon weight holding hand. You can use the splayed hand, but it looks kind of odd. This is intimidating, don't get me wrong, but you think I like the axe better. And that's not usually true. I'm almost always a cannon guy, but this axe is pretty badass. It's got the sculpted detail. It has the silver dry brush on top of it. It has that Cybertron look. Watch out for this. I hooked this on my shirt a minute ago. Nearly tore a hole in it. This is kind of amberish. Not as energy looking as we've seen with other axes. It's translucent, just dark. I like it because it's different. Then there's the Matrix. We're pretty used to this. This is another one of those you find on the ground. You know exactly where it goes. There's the gold, there's the silver, and the blue is a bit translucent. This is what those double finger grip hands are for. Damn it. But if you don't want them holding it, you can store it in the chest. And for as clunky as I thought this was going to be, it's a nice pop. Well, if I could figure out how to get the hell. There we go. There's 3 magnets that attach. If you didn't know this was there, if you didn't look at the instructions, you'd never realize it. And as far as I can tell, the Matrix is symmetrical. You can flip it this way, you can flip it this way. It doesn't matter. It's still kind of pinches in there. The window is translucent plastic, but it's so dark, you can't hardly see the Matrix through it. In fact, I'll probably never see the Matrix again. That's where it's staying. Finally, there's this. I'm not sure if this is supposed to go on there and stay, or if this is like a jetpack option. As is, you're left with some peg holes, which isn't really standing out at me. It makes for a very clean back. Once you plug this in, it is super tight. Kind of hard to get back off. So for me, like the Matrix, this is probably now a permanent part of Prime. And really, it doesn't stick out. It's just there. Height-wise, Optimus stands at pretty much exactly 7 inches tall, which works wonderfully with the MDLX Bumblebee. They just mesh. I liked this, but I like both of them more for having both of them. You know, they complement each other. And just like Bumblebee being taller than the Hasbro version, This Optimus is taller than the War for Cybertron. Is that what this one is? Definite aesthetic difference here. Definite price difference too. You're paying for all this extra detail and paint and all that. I'm not going to be replacing that Optimus with the MDLX on my Hasbro Transformers shelf, but I don't know. Now that I have them together, that's not terrible, but this would stand out. Here's the MDLX with the amazing Yamaguchi. And then for giggles with the Hasbro Star Wars Black Series version 1 Stormtrooper and the Hasbro Marvel Legends comic book Black Panther. So at the end of the day, another solid 3-0 Transformers release. This captures everything I love about Optimus Prime while adding a lot of details that I prefer when it comes to robot-type action figures. I love being visually stimulated by my action figures. And that's exactly what this damn thing does. There's always something to look at. And there's always something to mess with. Yeah, the articulation can be a bit, not frustrating. You have to map it out. You have to think about it as you go. Or you end up in a position where you're just kind of, what happened? Why? But for something this chunky in places, it's got a lot of range. I wish the head could look around more, but other than that, everything moves just like I want it to. Now, I had my gripes about a couple of things, but it's mostly just, it's nothing even annoying. It's just like, well, why'd they do that? Oh well, fun, fun, fun. But my big fear is that we won't get a lot of characters. We got Bumblebee, we now have Optimus. I feel like it'll just be these two, Megatron, and I'm hoping for Soundwave, but I think Starscream would kick ass in this look and would be a nice foil for Bumblebee. We're not going to get the deep dives. We're not going to get those lesser known characters, which is okay. I mean, this will make for a nice, tight display. But in my brain, I'm like, I want all of them. If you enjoyed the review, comment, like, subscribe. Much, much love to the plus if you're interested in seeing videos early or in a position to help out the channel, patreon.com. Wherever you may be watching this, I'll always catch you on the Fwoosh. I wonder. Let's pop this hand off. I've found that the weapon holding hands, it's easier to put the hand on the weapon and then plug it in. This rifle being super big, I wonder if it would even grip the Hasbro. Oh, it does. Yeah, that's actually too small. And the amazing Yamaguchi, again, too small. Doesn't want to grip in the hand either. We have to go third party. Or, well, there's a lot of Optimus Primes out there. Surely there's another ion cannon somewhere.